Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Welcome back, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
I am so excited to share this information with you today about doll play. But first, Alison wants to shout out some of the demographics listening to this podcast.
Yeah, so hello, all of my peeps from Hong Kong. Welcome. And also hello to all the peeps listening in Newburgh, Indiana.
Hi, Indiana.
Yeah.
And Hong Kong.
And Hong Kong.
Thanks for listening. Please be sure you share the wealth and let people know that we're here talking about things like today's topic, which is doll play and what children are doing when they play with dolls, what they may be doing, which there's research about the role that the doll plays during doll play, which fascinated me when I read it. And I'm hopeful will fascinate all of you too, and give you some things to think about as you're observing children at play.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I phrase this properly, and Alison, you'll correct me if I don't.
Okay.
There's research that shows that sometimes when children are playing with dolls, the doll is a representation of the child. Mm-hmm. They are, we think, let me see if I can put this another way.
Yeah. So
let's say a child is playing in an early childhood program, and they very often play with representations of their family, right? Mm-hmm. So they might take on the role of someone in their family, like their mother, their grandmother, their guardian who is raising them. They take on a role.
Yeah.
And then they have a doll, and they treat that doll as if it were their child. But the things that the doll does, feels, and expresses through their imagination and their play are actually the child themselves.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for example, I have seen many times a child is playing with a doll. The doll gets into a fight with another doll. The child is not removed from that. The doll that the child is using represents what they might do, say, and feel. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Do you have a better way to put this?
No.
Okay.
I don't think, because I think you're explaining it pretty well.
All right. We're just going to roll with it then.
Yeah.
So it isn't, so the child is there playing, we're just going to say the role of mommy. Another child is playing a role of mommy or daddy with another doll. The two dolls get into an argument. The children use the dolls in a way that represents what they might want to experiment with feeling, doing, saying. And I have seen children have these dolls get into a fight, and they start yelling at each other and hitting each other because they're exploring what would it feel like to do that. But I know I can't do that.
Right. I feel like it's like experimenting with the reactions of things. Like maybe they were in that situation, maybe they weren't, but say they were in that situation where maybe they got yelled at by somebody and they reacted in a certain way, and they're using the doll to experiment what it would have been like to react in a different way.
Or even maybe they weren't yelled at, but they want to try and figure out what would it feel like to be yelled at.
Yeah. Or what would I do if I was yelled at?
Right. So maybe they've seen other people yell at children. They themselves have never been yelled at in that way. I think sometimes as adults, when children yell at dolls, we think, oh, they must get yelled at home. Right. It can actually be the child wondering what it would feel like to be yelled at.
Yeah.
And the doll represents them.
Right.
Again, the notion here is, according to the research, very often the child is not removed from the doll. The doll is not someone else. Right. The doll represents them, what they are experimenting with thoughts, feelings, and action.
It's like they're living vicariously through a doll.
Yes. Yeah. There you go.
There it is.
It's like them living vicariously through the doll, trying to figure out what would happen, what would the reactions be, what would it feel like
Yeah.
to do this. Haven't you seen children just sort of abuse dolls?
I was just thinking of Barbies. Remember, remember there were some people who would take such meticulous care of their Barbies, and there were other people who would like cut the hair and mark them all up, and they like would abuse the Barbie. Okay, when we were kids, and there were other people who never did that, right? So like, but I feel like there's got to be a reason why they were like doing that and mistreating the doll, or like cutting the hair, or like putting tattoos on them, or whatever it might be. And I think it's because that's not who you are, maybe.
And you are living vicariously. Or, you know, they want to know, what is it like people cut my hair.
Right. What's it like to cut someone else's hair? So
they are being the hair
dresser,
the hairstylist or whatever in that case. And then maybe they're curious, but then the doll enacts feelings. I've seen the doll be like, don't cut my hair. I love my hair.
Yeah.
They're sort of the feelings. Let me see if I can put it this way.
Okay.
The feelings they give the doll are actually feelings they are experimenting with.
Okay.
About themselves.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what would it feel like. And they're doing that through the play with the doll.
Yeah.
Think about superhero play with dolls too. Right? Children will take superhero dolls.
Yeah.
And they're not removed from the superhero. They are experimenting with what it would be like to have these superpowers. The doll that can fly.
Yes.
The doll that can like wave its arms and make things happen.
Right. The one that has the superhuman strength.
Right.
That kind of thing. I think that's also like them experimenting, like, what would it feel like to save somebody or rescue somebody, or what would it feel like to be rescued? Like, because they're watching those shows with like the firefighters and the police officers, and I think they're trying to almost enact that out. Like, what would it feel like to be in that situation?
What this tells us, I think, is that pretend play and role play in particular is multidimensional. I can take on the role and pretend to be a parent because I want to figure out how wonderful it must feel to be as powerful as my parent. But I also am taking on the role of the doll because I'm creating the reactions of the doll and what the doll is going to do and say. So actually, role play is not one dimensional. You are not taking on one role. You are taking on multiple roles. And through every role, you're exploring the human experience.
Yes.
Wow. That I'm exhausted now.
Well, it's a safe environment in which to do so, right? Because like, it's a doll, like, so it's not like you can't put yourself in that situation. That might not be safe necessarily, or it might not even occur. It might just be something you're thinking about, like, what would it feel like to be yelled at, say, or what would it feel like to be rescued? You wouldn't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to be rescued just to feel what it's like to be rescued. So you're gonna do it through a doll.
Right. And I think it's an important concept as we observe children's play and their role play.
Yeah.
That they are, and I think we intellectually know this, they are all the roles. And through every role that they assume, they are trying to express curiosity.
Yeah.
They're trying to build things like the ability to take on the perception of other people. They're trying to figure out what must it feel like to have things happen that they themselves have not experienced.
Right.
They are learning about being caring and nurturing. They're learning about being heroes. They're learning about all this, but they are not separate from any of the roles that they are a part of.
Right.
So to say, let's say a child is playing, let me put it this way. When a child plays dress up and they put on a superhero cape, we know that they are taking on the role of the superhero, trying to figure out what that would be like, feel like, and what they would do. But let's say they don't put on the cape, they grab a doll instead.
Right.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Because they are now the personality of the doll.
Right.
So doll play is actually about the child who is performing that doll play. It is about the child. It is not disconnected from the child.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that anything bad is happening anywhere to them. Not necessarily. that would have to be decided by professionals that have education beyond what you and I have, Allison. Right. This would be up to child psychologists to figure out, child psychiatrists, child psychologists to figure out if there's a certain sort of play happening that seems to be troublesome. I'm not qualified to decide if it's actually troublesome.
Right. But I don't think you should be ignoring it either.
Right.
So you need to report that to whoever you need to report that to so that these experts come in and decide.
Yes. Have you ever been in a situation where a child is doing things to a doll and you're concerned about their well-being at home?
Yes. That's why I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think that those people who are experts, and even if it's like Department of Children and Families or whoever, those people who are experts, they're true experts in child abuse and neglect, know all the signs better than I do, which is why teachers are mandatory reporters. Right. At the same time, every time a child yells at a doll, hits a doll, that is not representative necessarily of something happening at home.
Right.
It can go either way. And I think that there are multiple symptoms and outlets and things we would have to look at as professionals to determine if there's a connection. The point of this episode, though, is to say, when a child is playing with a doll and they do something like, "Are you hungry? Would you like food?" And the doll says, "No, I'm not hungry." They're experimenting with what it would be like to even look at adults and be able to say no, which is a whole other episode that's coming.
It's a good segue.
Thank you. Good segue to the next episode, I believe.
Yeah.
They may be experimenting. Let's say they're playing with a doll. And I've seen children do this. Like they'll take the baby doll carriage and put the child in upside down. They put the doll in upside down. Adults are like, the baby needs to sit on their bottom. Yeah. Maybe the child is like, oh, what would it feel like to be upside down?
Upside down.
Because the doll is them.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe they've wanted to sit upside down and they're always told, no, that's not safe or whatever it is, so that they can safely do this to a doll. So they just do it.
Right. And we have to really, as professionals, kind of hone in on, is there potentially an issue here with what the child is doing? Yeah. Is there not an issue here? Is the child just sort of exploring the different roles and things they see? I've had children so clearly imitate what has happened or what they have witnessed in a store with children.
Yeah.
Like they'll pretend to take the doll to the store and say things that adults have said in front of them. Because they're sort of revisiting those feelings sometimes. Right. How did it feel when this was said to me? Or how would it feel an adult said this to another child in the store? How would it feel if it was me?
If it was me. Yeah.
Right. So there are times when the doll is actually the child.
Yeah.
There are times when it's not as well.
Yeah.
And it's things they may or may not have experienced, but I think it's an interesting lens to look at role play through.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
When children are playing, we should always be observing, taking observation notes, and thinking about what skills is this building. And sometimes the doll play is building the things like empathy, compassion, and they're doing that by enacting different scenes and then being able to, as let's say they're role playing as they are a parent, something happens and the baby doll falls and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you got hurt. Let me fix it. I'm going to get a Band-Aid for your boo-boo." That's them learning about empathy, caregiving, nurturing. But they also probably have been in the position where they have fallen and gotten hurt.
Yeah.
So on the side of when they're saying to the doll, "I'm so sorry you got hurt, baby. I'm sorry you're crying. I'm going to get a Band-Aid." It's what they would want.
Right.
They want someone to comfort them, to nurture them, and to go get a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Sometimes the doll is what they would want.
Yeah.
Right. I remember a child who used to sit the doll. We had like a doll high chair.
Yeah.
And they would sit the doll in the doll high chair and go to feed the doll. And the doll never wanted what they were trying to feed them. And I remember the child would be like, "I know you don't want that. I'll go get something else." And that's probably what the doll would want. I would bet you, though,
it's really what they want.
It's really what they want. It could be that the family is like, "You have to eat what I've given you."
Yeah.
So they're enacting what when she kept saying, I know you don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get you something else. And she did that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Maybe just experimenting with how awesome would it feel if people just kept bringing me all different food. Like this was a baby buffet.
Yeah.
Think about it when children are playing with dolls. Really think about it. Consider their actions. Because sometimes when we see them doing something like that, it can lead to a deep conversation. It can lead to a book you realize is related to that.
Yeah.
And read the book about that social situation with the children. It can lead to other lessons that would help children to better understand their feelings, their thoughts, their perceptions.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done. Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. I don't think I can try and explain that again. But do come, please, next week when we talk about what we briefly mentioned here, which is children saying no. We will catch you next time.